Effective as of this moment. My name is Tracy Thompson. I am 47 years old, and for the last 15 years I have managed client relations at Horizon Biotech. When the new director, Madison Clark, delivered those words in front of my entire team, I didn't flinch. I simply nodded, keeping my hands steady on the polished surface of the conference table. Calmly, I broke the silence. I trust Friday's client presentation will go smoothly, I said. The words lingered in the air, part statement, part warning, part farewell. The room went quiet. My team, the people I had hired, trained, and watched grow from junior associates to department leads, stared at the table. Madison's eyes narrowed. She was 32, with an MBA from some prestigious school. She had been brought in 3 months ago to modernize operations, though she had never worked a single day in biotech before. "What do you mean?" she asked. I smiled. "You'll figure it out." I walked to my office and started packing. 23 years of work, reduced to 2 cardboard boxes. Photos of successful product launches. Awards from satisfied clients. The coffee mug my daughter had given me that read, "World's Best Dad." Madison followed me, hovering in the doorway like she wanted to say something but could not find the words. "Tracy, about the Hologate account." "Not my problem anymore," I said, taping up the first box. She left me alone after that. My team filtered in, one by one. They did not say much, just quiet handshakes and promises to stay in touch. Beth, my senior analyst, lingered the longest. "This is wrong," she whispered. "It's business," I told her. But we both knew it was not. The truth was, I had seen this coming for weeks. Ever since Madison arrived, she had been undermining me in small ways, scheduling meetings without me, questioning my decisions in front of clients. Last week, she had suggested to upper management that my old school approach was holding the company back. What she did not know was that I had been keeping detailed records, every slight, every attempt to cut me out. I had also been preparing for the worst-case scenario. Because in 15 years of managing million-dollar accounts, you learn to plan for everything. I loaded my boxes into my truck and drove home. My wife, Brittany, was waiting with coffee and the kind of look that said she already knew what had happened. "How bad?" she asked. "Could be worse," I said. But sitting there in my kitchen, looking at those boxes, I felt something I had not felt in years. Not anger, not sadness, something sharper. Madison had made a mistake. A big one. And she would not realize it until Friday morning when Hologate Systems called, asking where their presentation was. The presentation that only I knew how to deliver. I had started at Horizon Biotech straight out of college. Back then, it was a small company with big dreams and even bigger problems. The founder, old William Horizon, had taken a chance on a kid with no experience but plenty of hunger. I spent my first 5 years learning everything: lab procedures, regulatory compliance, client psychology. By 30, I was running the client relations department. By 35, I was the guy companies called when they needed biotech solutions fast and done right. I had built relationships that kept Horizon afloat during the recession of 2008. When competitors folded, we thrived because our clients trusted me. Brittany understood the demands, the late-night calls from overseas clients, the weekend trips to secure new contracts. She raised our daughter, Chloe, while I built something that mattered, something that provided for our family and employed 63 people. But things started changing when William retired 2 years ago. His son, Marcus, took over as CEO and brought in consultants who spoke in buzzwords and saw employees as line items. Madison was one of those consultants, who had somehow convinced Marcus she could optimize our client engagement strategy. The warning signs were there from day one. She would arrive at client meetings with no background knowledge, then interrupt me mid-presentation to suggest changes that made no sense. She reorganized my filing system without asking. Worst of all, she started scheduling calls with my biggest clients, claiming she needed to assess their satisfaction levels. 3 weeks ago, I had walked into the office early and overheard her on the phone with someone from corporate. Tracy's methods are outdated. The clients respect him, but they need fresh thinking. I can deliver the same results with half the overhead. Half the overhead meant cutting my team. People like Beth, who had worked nights to master the Hologate account specifications, or Tom, who had learned Mandarin just to communicate better with our Shanghai partners. I should have confronted her then. Instead, I did what I always did: I focused on the work. The Hologate presentation was our biggest pitch of the year, a $30 million contract for specialized biosensors. I had been preparing for 8 months, building relationships with their technical team, understanding their exact requirements. Madison knew about the meeting, but not the details. In her mind, presentations were just PowerPoint slides and generic talking points. She did not understand that Hologate's chief technology officer hated formal presentations, or that their procurement director only trusted vendors who could speak her language: precise, technical, no fluff. The irony was perfect. Madison had fired me to look decisive and forward-thinking. But Friday morning, when Hologate called asking for Tracy Thompson specifically, she would learn the difference between managing people and managing relationships. Thursday night, I could not sleep. Not from worry, but from anticipation. Brittany found me in the kitchen at 2 a.m., sitting with a cup of coffee and my laptop. "You're planning something," she said. "Just thinking." She sat down across from me. 22 years of marriage had taught her when to push and when to wait. This was a waiting moment. "Madison called earlier," I finally said. "Left 3 voicemails. What did she want?" "Details about the Hologate presentation." Brittany smiled. She had been there for every late night, every weekend I had spent building those client relationships. She understood what I had built better than anyone. "What did you tell her?" "Nothing. I'm not her employee anymore." That was when it hit me, the full scope of what Madison had done. She had not just fired me. She had destroyed 15 years of institutional knowledge, client preferences, technical specifications, relationship dynamics that had taken years to develop. The Hologate account was not just about a presentation. It was about trust, built through dozens of smaller interactions. Like remembering that their lead engineer preferred technical drawings over flowcharts, or knowing that their CEO made decisions based on implementation timelines, not cost savings. Madison thought she could wing it, show up with a standard pitch deck and charm her way through $30 million of business. She had no idea that Hologate's team would be expecting the detailed technical breakdown I had promised them, the one that existed only in my head, and in notes they would never find. I opened my laptop and looked at my calendar. Hologate was scheduled for 10 a.m. Friday. By 11 a.m., Madison would be sitting in Marcus' office, trying to explain why their biggest client of the year had walked out after 20 minutes. My phone buzzed. A text from Beth. "Madison's been in your office all day looking for files. She seems panicked." I typed back. "Files are on the server. She has access to everything." Which was true. She had access to contracts, basic client information, standard presentation templates. What she did not have was context, the human element that turned data into relationships. I poured another cup of coffee and opened my personal email. Then I started reaching out to contacts at other biotech companies, people who had been trying to recruit me for years. By morning, I had 3 interview requests and 1 job offer. Brittany woke up at 6 a.m. and found me still at the kitchen table, now dressed for the day. "Going somewhere?" she asked. "Coffee shop downtown. Good Wi-Fi. Quiet place to make some calls." She kissed my forehead. "Give them hell." I did not plan to give anyone hell. I planned to let Madison do that all by herself. Friday morning at 9:47 a.m., I was sitting in Brewster's Coffee House downtown when my phone started ringing. Madison. I let it go to voicemail. Then she called again. And again. By 10:15, she had called 7 times. At 10:23, Beth called. Tracy, where are you? The Hollowgate people are here and Madison is having a meltdown. She can't find the technical specifications they're asking for. They're in the system, I said, stirring my coffee. She says they're not. She's been up all night looking. Tell her to check the project folder under Hollowgate Systems Technical Requirements. Beth went silent for a moment. Tracy. She says that folder is empty. Only basic contact information is there. I almost smiled. That's because the technical specs were never digitized. They're in my notebook. The blue one that lived on my desk. The one you took home yesterday, Beth whispered. The one I took home yesterday. Beth's voice dropped. They're asking for you specifically. The CTO said he was looking forward to discussing the sensor calibration protocols you developed. Wish I could help. At 10:45, Marcus himself called. Tracy, I need you to come in. There's been a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding. I was terminated yesterday. Effective immediately. I believe those were Madison's words. Look, we can work this out. Maybe Madison was hasty. Maybe she was. But I'm not an employee anymore, Marcus. I can't legally represent Horizon in client meetings. Then. Name your rate. I'm not available. Which was true. I had a phone interview scheduled with Driftshade Limited at 2 p.m. Their VP of Business Development had personally called me after receiving my resume that morning. By 11:30, according to Beth's texts, the Hollowgate team had left. They had given Madison 20 minutes to produce the technical documentation they had specifically requested. When she could not deliver, they politely excused themselves and said they would reassess their options. Madison called again at noon. This time I answered. Tracy, you have to help me. This is sabotage. This is consequences. I can report you for corporate sabotage withholding company information. What information? I removed my personal belongings from my office. The notebooks were mine. I bought them with my own money. All official company files remain on the server. You know that's not how this works. Actually, it's exactly how it works. I was terminated without cause and without notice. Horizon forfeited any claim to my cooperation. She hung up. 10 minutes later, security called asking me to return my company notebooks. I told them to check my employment contract. Personal notebooks purchased with personal funds remained personal property. At 1:30, Brittany called, laughing. Chloe just texted me. She saw Madison on LinkedIn posting about exciting new opportunities at Horizon. Apparently, she's trying to spin this as a positive restructuring. How's that working out? I asked. 3 of your former clients have already commented, asking where you went. Word traveled fast in biotech. By 3 p.m., after a very promising phone interview with Driftshade Limited, I had my answer to Madison's earlier accusation about sabotage. This was not sabotage. Sabotage implied I had actively tried to damage something. I had done nothing except take my knowledge with me when they showed me the door. The fact that Madison had not bothered to learn how the department actually functioned, that was her choice. The fact that she had fired the only person who understood the intricacies of their biggest accounts, that was her decision. I had spent 15 years building something valuable. Madison had spent 15 minutes destroying it. Now she was learning what that knowledge was actually worth. My phone buzzed again. A text from Beth. Hollowgate called. They want to know if you're available for freelance consultation. Apparently, they're very unhappy with Horizon's lack of preparation. I typed back. Tell them I'm not available. But they might want to consider Driftshade Limited for their biotech needs. Sometimes the best revenge is simply stepping out of the way and letting people face the consequences of their own actions. Saturday morning, my phone rang. It was Tom, my former colleague from the Shanghai team. "Tracy, I need to tell you something," he said. "I probably should have told you weeks ago." I poured coffee and sat down. "I'm listening." "Madison's been calling our international clients. Not to build relationships, to get information. She wanted to know about contract terms, renewal dates, pricing structures. Things she should have learned from internal files." The picture became clearer. "What else?" "She asked me to send her copies of all my client correspondence. Said it was for a quality assurance review. When I told her it was already logged in the CRM system, she insisted she needed the originals." A cold weight settled in my stomach. "Did you send them?" "No. But Tracy, I think she was building a case against you. Trying to prove you were hiding information or mismanaging accounts." That explained the sudden interest in my methods, the questions about my client relationships. Madison had not been trying to learn from me. She had been trying to replace me with documentation she could control. "There's more," Tom continued. "Yesterday, after the Hollowgate disaster, she called an emergency meeting. Told everyone you had deliberately withheld critical information to sabotage the company. But Beth shut that down fast, reminded her that you had offered to train Madison on all your accounts when she first arrived. Madison declined, saying she preferred to develop her own approaches. I remembered that weekend clearly. 3 months ago, I had spent 2 full days preparing training materials for Madison. Detailed client profiles, communication preferences, technical requirements. She had glanced through them and dismissed the work, calling traditional relationship management too time-intensive for modern business practices. "What's the mood in the office?" I asked. "Tense. Marcus has called an all-hands meeting for Monday. Word is he's bringing in external consultants to assess the client relations crisis." After Tom hung up, I sat back, piecing it together. Madison had not just fired me on impulse. She had been planning this for weeks. The Hollowgate presentation was supposed to be her proof that she could handle my responsibilities. A success would have justified my termination. Instead, it had exposed how little she understood about the work she had inherited. That afternoon, my phone rang again. "Driftshade Limited. Tracy, this is Patricia Holloway. We'd like to schedule an in-person interview for Monday. Our team was very impressed with your experience. Frankly, we've been watching Horizon's recent changes with concern. Several of our partners have mentioned disruptions in their client service. We're looking for someone who understands the importance of relationship-based business development." After she hung up, I realized Madison had done me a favor. For years, I had been comfortable at Horizon. Good salary, familiar routines, established relationships. But I had stopped growing. I had been so focused on maintaining what I had built that I had forgotten there were other places to build. Monday morning, I put on my best suit and drove to Driftshade Limited's headquarters in downtown Chicago. The interview went better than I expected. By noon, I had a formal offer, Senior Director of Client Relations. A 25% salary increase, full benefits, and a signing bonus that would cover Chloe's college tuition for the next 2 years. I accepted on the spot. Walking out of their offices, I felt lighter than I had in months. Not because of the money, because of the possibilities. Driftshade was growing fast, landing contracts with pharmaceutical giants and research universities. They needed someone who understood how to build lasting client relationships in a competitive market. Someone exactly like me. My phone buzzed with a text from Beth. Horizon stock dropped 3% this morning. Word about Hollowgate is getting around. I was not surprised. In biotech, reputation traveled fast. Lose one major client through poor preparation, and others started questioning your reliability. Madison's so-called modernization was looking more like incompetence with each passing day. Tuesday, the Chicago Business Journal published a brief article. Hollowgate Systems had selected Driftshade Limited for their biosensor project. The $30 million contract I had spent 8 months developing was now officially mine again, through my new employer. Wednesday, Tom called with an update. Marcus fired Madison yesterday. Effective immediately. How's the team handling it? Relief, mostly. But there's talk about bringing in another outside consultant to assess efficiency. I felt a pang of sympathy for my former colleagues. They had survived Madison's short reign, but corporate restructuring was like a virus. Once it started, it was hard to stop. Tom, can I ask you something? Sure. Are you happy at Horizon? A long pause. Not really. Why? Driftshade is expanding. They're looking for international business development specialists. Someone with your experience and language skills would be valuable. Are you serious? I start Monday. If you're interested, I can set up an interview. Thursday, Patricia Holloway from Driftshade called with an interesting proposition. Tracy, we've been thinking about expanding our pharmaceutical consulting division. We'd need someone to head it up, someone with deep industry knowledge and established relationships. That's a significant expansion. The question is whether you know anyone who might be interested in building something from the ground up. I thought about Beth, her expertise in regulatory compliance, her frustrated ambition, how Madison had passed her over for promotion 3 times. I might know someone, I said. Friday afternoon, I drove to Brewster's Coffee House, the same place where I had watched Madison's world collapse a week earlier. This time, I was meeting Beth. Tracy, I can't believe what you're offering. Believe it. Driftshade wants to build a pharmaceutical consulting division. You'd be the founding director. Full autonomy, competitive salary, and the chance to build something significant. What about Tom? He already accepted. He starts Monday as International Business Development Manager. Beth stared at her coffee for a long moment. Marcus offered me your old position yesterday, department head for client relations. Are you taking it? I was planning to. Until now. Horizon will be fine. They'll hire someone new, rebuild what they lost. But it'll take years. And Driftshade? Driftshade is moving forward with or without us. The question is whether we want to be part of building something new, or fixing something broken. She smiled for the first time since Madison arrived. When do I start? By the end of the week, Driftshade had hired 3 former Horizon employees. Not through poaching. Not through pressure. Through opportunity. We weren't running from something. We were running toward something better. Madison had taught us all a valuable lesson about the difference between managing people and leading them. Now we had the chance to put that lesson to use. 3 months later, I was sitting in a conference room at Driftshade's expanded offices, reviewing quarterly results with Patricia Holloway and the executive team. The numbers were impressive. Pharmaceutical consulting division up 200%. International contracts increased by 150%. Client satisfaction scores at an all-time high. Tracy, your team has exceeded every projection we made, Patricia said. The Hollowgate implementation alone has generated 5 new contract inquiries. Beth, now director of pharmaceutical consulting, smiled from across the table. The regulatory approval process went smoother than anyone expected. When clients see that kind of efficiency, word spreads fast. Tom joined by video from Shanghai, where he was closing a deal with a major research hospital. The international expansion is ahead of schedule. We're looking at 3 new markets next quarter. That afternoon, I received an unexpected email. Marcus Horizon wanted to meet for coffee. We met at Brewster's Coffee House. It seemed appropriate. Marcus looked older, more tired than I remembered. Tracy, I owe you an apology. I made a mistake with Madison. A big one. How's Horizon doing? I asked. Surviving. We lost 4 major clients after the Hollowgate situation. Had to lay off 15 people. Stock price still hasn't recovered. He stirred his coffee slowly. Jessica cost us more than clients. She cost us institutional knowledge, relationships that took years to build. You can rebuild, but it won't be the same. He looked up. I heard about your success at Drift Shade. The pharmaceutical division. The international expansion. That should have been Horizon's growth. I stayed silent. There wasn't much to say. Would you consider coming back? I could offer you Madison's position. VP of Operations. Full authority over client relations, business development, everything. I'm happy where I am, Marcus. Double your current salary. It's not about money. Then what is it about? Trust. When you hired Madison, you chose to believe that relationships don't matter. That experience can be replaced with efficiency. That was your choice. I was wrong. Yes, you were. But the damage is done. Your clients don't trust Horizon anymore. Your employees don't trust leadership. And frankly, I don't trust you not to make the same mistake again. Marcus left without finishing his coffee. As I watched him walk away, I felt something I hadn't expected: pity. He had learned an expensive lesson about the value of experience and loyalty. 6 months after my termination, Drift Shade Limited announced a major acquisition, the pharmaceutical consulting assets of 3 smaller biotech firms. The move created the largest independent consulting practice in the Midwest. I was named Senior Vice President of Strategic Development. The announcement made the front page of the Chicago Business Journal. The article mentioned my previous role at Horizon, noting how my departure had preceded their recent struggles. Madison, according to LinkedIn, had taken a position with a startup in Denver. Her profile emphasized her experience in organizational transformation and change management. There was no mention of Horizon, or what that transformation had actually accomplished. The poetic justice wasn't lost on me. In trying to prove that relationships didn't matter, she had destroyed the very relationships that kept Horizon competitive. In trying to show that experience was replaceable, she had eliminated the experience that made them valuable. Beth and Tom thrived in their new roles. The team we built at Drift Shade was everything Madison had claimed modern business should be: efficient, results-driven, profitable. The difference was that we built it on a foundation of mutual respect and shared knowledge, not buzzwords and arbitrary restructuring. Last week, Chloe called from college with news that made everything worthwhile. Dad, my business professor used your story as a case study about the importance of institutional knowledge and relationship management. She called it the Horizon mistake. What did you tell her? I asked. That my dad always said the best revenge is living well. Brittany was right, as usual. You can't save everyone. You can only control what you do next. 6 months later, Horizon's board of directors forced Marcus to step down as CEO after a series of failed client acquisitions and mounting financial losses. Madison's Denver startup folded within 8 months, leaving her explaining the gap in her resume to increasingly skeptical employers. The organizational transformation she had championed became a cautionary tale taught in business schools across the country. Sometimes, the most satisfying victories are the ones where you never have to throw a punch. My name is Tracy Thompson. You've just heard my story: how a career can change in a single moment, how leadership is proven not in titles, but in trust. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this: relationships are the real currency of business. Lose them, and you lose everything. Protect them, and you'll never run out of opportunities.